Luis, you weren't very happy with the surf break on the logo. What was wrong with that? I mean, ChatGPT clearly hasn't surfed before, but
They don't know what type of waves we have. In Malibu, we're known for point breaks. So, I mean, we have Zuma Beach, which is a fun short break, right? But we want to, if something defines Malibu is a perfect point break, so it should be present always.
all right. So we got to get ChatGPT to fix that. Fix that for us. You gotta.
We all agree that logo is legit? Because I don't think it's legit.
I don't know. I kind of like it.
Oh, I like it too.
The logo, the MRTF logo, or which one are you? The Rebuild and Chill one? Which one are you talking about?
RTF logo. I think the Rebuild and Chill logo is good.
I don't know, man.
It's just a simple logo. Who cares?
Well,
it's got the flames. It's got the phoenix. It's got
a lot
going on.
It has power to it at the same time. That phoenix is powerful, right? That's what we want to.
Well, I mean, what happened to the Phoenix's hammer? I like the one that Arno had put out before.
Big fan of the hammer.
But yeah, I didn't think we had voted on the logo officially, but throw it out.
Unilaterally, you'd publicize it. That's why.
Well, Darren, be the change you want to see. Come up with an alternate logo, and
I did.
Love it.
Oh. You didn't see my alternate?
Yeah,
just pop it up, and we can change it daily.
It was a little more chill.
That's true too.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
right. And that's good. I like that.
Yeah, right. No Phoenix. Pretty low key. It'll look good on a t-shirt. So breaking news this week, let's just jump right into it. City Council meeting, what was it, on Tuesday? I think all of you guys were there in flesh in the sacred chambers. What, unpack it for us. What do we need to know? What came out?
I think it was Arno, Salwa, who else was there?
I was on Zoom.
Salwa's husband. They both spoke very well. Who else? No, it was
Dean was there.
Yes, Dean was there, and Olivia was there too.
What were the upshots? Like, what were the biggest takeaways? What was exciting? What was disappointing? Give us the over and the under.
Or if you guys want me, yeah, I think that to me it was the second biggest meeting and the second most important meeting after the fires. From my point of view, in terms of policy, in terms of okay, what can we do? What can we propose? What can we design? On Tuesday, I think we were hoping to get more clarity. So the planning department put some questions on paper, and the council had a chance to vote on those and create policy, because that's what they are, right? They are policymakers, and they were only able to touch 1 point out of 15, but that was a very important point. It's
1 out of 15.
Yeah. 1 out of 15, but it was probably the most important one.
Very important one.
When you start designing, right? So, and my remark is that is the same attitude as what they had with the FEMA approach, where they're trying to help as much as they can the fire victims, try not to limit what they can rebuild, try to think that they were not doing something wrong, and that or not to blame the victim for having something that was 100% kosher, and allowing them to just go for it, So there are some complications, right? There are some limitations, but so far it feels like it's going to be a bit easier. But again, you said this, Abe, in your Instagram, they still need to certify this. They need to rewrite it. But my understanding from what Trevor said is that we can just take this approach right now.
Yeah. So that sounded like a pretty favorable outcome for the most part. So, I mean, I think the certification is scheduled. What I saw the date 27th August. Geez, I mean, that just seems like a while away.
Here's my issue. You said 15 items on the agenda, and where did these items come from as background?
So 15 issues, right? So 15 topics that the planning department they chose those. They elaborated that list. 12 are for all the fire rebuilds. 3 were just specific to the Palisades and Franklin. And so those were things that they felt on their side, right? If there's sides here, that those are the things that need more clarity. But for example, I added a few more on my own.
So my issue is that we had a list of 15 and we're 6 months plus into this. There are more than 15 issues to be figured out, but we had a list of 15. We mostly solved one of them, and the follow-up meeting has been scheduled for 32 days from now to maybe solve another.
Maybe, right?
So I'm glad that the work is being done. It's being done at a glacial pace. I don't see any reason why these meetings shouldn't be happening once a week. They're capped at 2 hours. You know, it's not a big ask of staff or council time, and it's how we're going to solve problems. And the idea that we're going to do this once a month is crazy to me.
Sure. Yeah, I think if we're going to have meetings, they need to be efficient. And rather than listening to 5 city council members talk on and wax poetic about what can or can't be done, they need to have a limit. Like if we speak as the public, we get a 3-minute limit. Give each council person a 6 or a 9-minute limit, and then move through each item. But to me, it was a total waste of time. And I know everyone's going to be like, well, we got one thing done. Yeah, 1 out of 15, and then there were probably 30 more things that weren't on the agenda. So to me, 1 out of 45 issues got resolved.
But I can't.
That's not going to help anybody.
I can't argue with the process when they get to the right conclusion. And we have some strong council members like Bruce and Doug who kept pushing people. Let's narrow our focus and get something done. Let's.
And I think, in fairness, the council members aren't happy about the fact that we got 1 out of 15 done. I mean, they'd much rather see things happening at a much brisker pace. So at a fundamental level, we are setting ourselves up where it's impossible to get any more than, let's just say, 1 out of 15 done in this particular format, because the residents get maybe a day or so to review, so they're coming in hot with all their comments. Council has to listen to them. The council is reviewing not only that item, but they're having to read through a whole bunch of others, educating themselves in a span of 24 hours or so, whatever it is. And it is inevitable to have disagreements and discussions. So I just don't know if systematically we are even letting ourselves have these decisions at a faster pace. I mean, there just needs to be a fundamentally different way, a fundamentally different approach to this thing, especially now that we are sort of 7 months into this.
In my opinion, the problem with that, so all the questions that they had were very valid and fair, but I missed a stronger person managing this conversation and keeping it on the topic, right? Because it quickly went beyond what they were discussing, and I was like, with Arnold right there moving, like trying to tell them to just focus on what we're talking about, which is what was legally erected. Don't talk to me about landslides or variances. This is just what was legally erected. So I was thinking about the workshops, that even though there was no policy made during the workshops because that nobody was voting on anything, they were very well handled, in my opinion. And it was someone like Alexis who had the mic and was keeping everyone, like on a timeline, like, okay, let's change topics. So maybe for the next one, if we have Richard or someone capable of shutting up the people, right, when they are going out of topic, and keeping them and setting up a timeline on, okay, we need to vote right now.
Yeah, I just want to get to maybe more of a structural issue here. Is what would you guys think is the best way to approach this? Like, how do we get decisions made effectively? I mean, I think, Danny, you brought up a good point. Like, how were those 15 points even brought up? Were they the top priority items? How do we know that they're the top priority items? Did the city adjudicate those? Should we have had more of a say in those, whatever it is? So that's one, right? So how do we decide which are the top priority items? The second one is, once we have decided them, what's the best format to vet them out efficiently so we can actually have decisions in a 2-hour meeting?
It was a 3-hour meeting, right? They started late, I guess. It was 2.5. But I think it's the moderator and the time limit. I mean, I know they're not used to a time limit, but they got to figure out a way to cut off each person so they get concise, cogent arguments in.
I think the suggestion that Halen made to have a workshop meeting and ideally maybe the council having voting powers during that meeting so they can make decisions with the influence of residents who are very knowledgeable, getting our input, and that may help to come to a decision sooner. But it's also about what happens with those decisions, because if they make a decision like this time, and I'm so grateful for how strong the city council members pushed on behalf of the residents. They were really representing us. It was beautiful to see in the outcome as well. But now we're waiting for the staff coming back with an actual document to vote on. And it's almost certain that there will be a few aspects that they will want to have changed. So the implementation of that decision is again 2 months out. And looking at the implementation of the fee waivers, which were already a formality in January, and it's still not implemented now 7 months later, that is the even bigger problem in my opinion. And
I think that, and Abe, I think you mentioned this in a comment yesterday. The idea is that even though there wasn't an official vote yesterday, staff took the input, they know where it's going, and they're going to softly implement these decisions. People are going to be able to get through their reviews with these new changes in mind, even if they're not official for a month. Same with the fee waivers. I mean, we know they're coming. Anybody who wants to pay can pay. They'll be reimbursed, that kind of thing. But I don't have any problem with the process under which we're working. I just think that these meetings need to be more frequent. I don't know if there's a solution.
Yeah, I
More
think
frequent and sped up somehow. I mean, we know government's inefficient, right? I work for the government, but the agency I work for is shockingly efficient compared to Malibu, right? This is a state agency and they've worked out their kinks over 40 years. Malibu's been around for 35. They should have worked out the kinks. It's not like they were a city that incorporated 6 years ago. So it's kind of crazy.
Maybe they need to look at these items almost as urgency, ordinances, things like that, where they stay late at meetings and they don't leave because they know they have to get something done that night.
but also the rest of the items are not that controversial as this one, but they can make them as long as possible.
They tend to take a life of their own. And, my thought is each of these items, or maybe a couple of them, like a cluster of them, right? The ones that are related, we can adjudicate them. We can really toss them around in a smaller forum, with certain residents, with certain experts, and absolutely with city leading the charge on it. And then present an outcome where you don't have to listen to different perspectives. Like a lot of the concerns are already preempted, where we're not doing the Q&A real time with or the dissection real time with council, because that's sort of like a high pressure cooker environment, and it's really not conducive to decision making and the adjudication happening. The council sort of needs to act as an executive board where the company, if you will, which is the city and residents to an extent, sort of bakes it to a certain level and presents an outcome. And certainly not everybody might be happy, and we present the pros and the cons, and then council gets to say yay or nay or ask questions of us. But I think this forum where we put out some very meaty topics with different vectors that can go each different ways and then expect a resolution, that's just unrealistic.
I mean, I would say, wasn't part of you becoming a Rebuild Ambassador to do exactly that? I mean, when we were talking about it in March or whenever that was, the idea was that you would have these baked, well thought out ideas, bring them to council, but before bringing them to council, discuss them with the city manager and the city staff so that all voices were heard prior to city council hearing it, and they get some sort of summary report to take action upon.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like a good process, and I think that's why we thought about it in March.
And they also said that they agreed with Abe's ideas, they would implement those and only bring to the council the ones where there's disagreement, and so have them vote on them. So I think this is like, again, the read is, and also we are missing part of this, right? So we need to think the way staff thinks. Like, we all think that everybody wants to propose good projects, but there's also the bad actors out there, and they need to manage, they need to process all applications. So they need to think worst case scenario too. But again, like, we can work with them, and it feels like they're afraid of giving up any sort of control or any sort of feedback or any sort of, okay, what do you think? That way their life is easier. So the least amount of exposure. So this was kind of, this agenda for Tuesday came out Friday, right? It was Friday or Thursday. So we had a weekend to think about this, and then Monday to meet to talk about this.
And that sort of, I get asked this question all the time, right? From people outside of Malibu, people within Malibu as well. Coming up on 7 months, 0. That's our tally up to now. We tout other numbers like, how many people showed up at the Rebuild Center, how many plans we got approved, this and that. But at the end of the day, we are still at a 0 when our neighbors are up to what, 200, 100 something, whatever. What's going on, guys? Every time I've tried to answer it, it's been a very unsatisfactory answer for most. And, I'll continue to give those unsatisfactory answers. What are your sentiments?
I have one read, but I want to hear first from Darren about Pasadena, and because again, comparing ourselves with the Palisades, they had how many burnt structures? Like 4,000, and we are at 700. So obviously they are like 7 times more, right, or something like that. So they're going to have a bigger amount of applicants.
Well, 5 times more. By that ratio, we should have been at 40 or 50 by now.
Yeah, exactly right.
And LADBS has the mechanism already in place, right? Because it's a massive jurisdiction. Pasadena doesn't. So Pasadena to Malibu is probably a fair comparison, considering small municipal government. Probably, I don't know how many people work there, but maybe 5 to 10 more than Malibu, versus LADBS has, a huge reach and hundreds of employees. But my guess or my sense is the staffing issue is a big problem, and the pecking order, or I guess the command order within the city, is holding a lot of things back. Because Malibu probably staffed up in February, but they staffed up with people with not a lot of experience, and those people are all going to defer to the people who are already in place. And the people who are already in place, there's probably 3 or 4 of them, they're making all the decisions, so they're the stopgap or the strangle point, and we can't get through them because they don't have enough time in the day. And that's really the issue. Everything goes to 3 or 4 people rather than 25 to 30 people. The 25 to 30 people need to each have the authority to make the decisions and get approvals through. And I don't think they're comfortable with having that authority if they've been given that authority, or maybe they haven't been given that authority. And if that's the case, then they really need a sea change.
My thoughts are similar. I don't believe it's a staffing issue in terms of numbers or capacity. It might be in 6 months when they start getting inundated with plans. But right now, there are a lot of people that have a lot of time. I think the Malibu has a leadership vacuum, and that's not saying anything negative about any individual. Some of this is long-standing. Some of it is the fact that we're between permanent city managers. So you have a municipality like LA, they can give direction and motivation system-wide that says, and this is what we've heard, anything that's close, green light, it goes. Approve it. That takes courage and that takes leadership to give that kind of direction. And we don't currently have someone who's willing to do that, to tell staff, loosen the reins.
Part of it is we can't help not talk about the NIMBYism that has contributed to this process, right? Historically, this has been a process that has been decades in the making. And all of us have tacitly kind of been okay with it because it has kind of served this whole notion of slow development or slowing development down. And now it's coming to bite us back in the ass. And now we are expecting staff to be two different things in the same city as the same sort of group of people and the same person. And that to me is a fundamental, at a core level, there's just something amiss about that, whether that's even a realistic expectation.
I feel the staff, again, they follow what they are told, and I agree. I think Malibu, from my experience, I've been working in Malibu, I don't know, like the first time that I went to a job site in Malibu was 2013. So it's been 12 years, and that's what you have. So there's a culture that bleeds into, so there's this, in order to be able to build in Malibu, you have to have an A team. Like, that's it. You have to have the best land use consultants, the best architects, the best soil engineers, the best civil engineers. Is A team. Not everybody can do that. And the staff is used to this. So they are kind of spoiled in a way where they can ask for more and more and more. And they know that the applicant has to say yes, or they don't get it. Like, they ask for this fee, don't ask any questions, or we will delay you even more, right? So now suddenly there has to be a change in mindset. And that's very hard. Like, humans, we don't like change that much. And they understand, they have empathy, but it is hard to just say, okay, now we're going to say yes the more we can. So,
well, I think the Army Corps was a great example, Luis, because, we are all pretty satisfied with how that went, right? Barring certain exceptions where they took out people's driveways and septics or whatever. But for the most part, I think everybody's pretty satisfied with the speed and efficiency and the professionalism with which the work was conducted. But think about this for a second. Firstly, it was a different group of people with a very clear mandate. They had the guidance, and Governor Newsom stepped in and said, okay, by 30th of May, by Labor Day, we need to get it done. Okay, so there was a very clear directive, very clear mandate. But I think more importantly, they were also given the liberty to say screw you to some of the more bureaucratic rules that were being thrown at them, right? I mean, what about that soils testing thing that went on for weeks, and they basically said, FO, this is what we're doing, like it or not. I'm not going to go through testing and think I'm going to remove 6 inches worth of dirt around and that's it, be happier. And then the county and the city basically acquiesced, and everybody shut up and let them do their work. So I think at some level, that's the kind of freedom and the confidence we need to be able to break the rules and get this shit moving.
I agree. And the bifurcation of slow growth, slow development for, new coastal development permit projects, and then the 770 rebuild projects, that needs to happen. Because if it doesn't, if you try to do it all under one umbrella, the slow growth mindset is going to slow down everybody. And, after the Tubbs fire in Santa Rosa, Sonoma County and Santa Rosa, which are also historically anti-development, I mean, this is NorCal wine country, they didn't have the same problem we seem to be having, right? They got 80% of the houses rebuilt in 2.5 years. So if they could do it, we could do it. And I'll keep on throwing that out because, Marin and Malibu, same socioeconomic class, same beautiful landscape, same concerns about don't overbuild and ruin the landscape. So we can do all that, but somebody in the city needs to split off and help the rebuild people while somebody else stops the massive mansion development. I mean, they can do both, but it probably can't be the same person.
I mean, sorry, like, how long did it take the gas companies to come up with electric vehicles? They couldn't until Tesla came along.
Oh, I mean, they had the 90s one.
And that's why they didn't. That's because they didn't want it to. They had the plans in the drawers, but it didn't. They were not incentivized to do it. And then when Tesla started it and had massive success, then they had to pull those plans out of the drawers. Plans
well, that's my point, though, that the incentives were not there. And is there some analogy there as well? It's like, first of all, you were trying to, do a different thing with the same group of people. But second of all, you'd feel that you'd hurt your mainstay. And is there a pervasive sentiment that if we turn the spigot open, then this whole, development thing is going to break loose and all hell will break loose and we'll lose our beautiful, charming rural Malibu forever.
So we need to get in detail here, right? Like, I think that there are things that are low-hanging fruit things. That's actually where I always focus on, and it's the process. So there's things in the process that, okay, do it for a big mansion. You don't need all of this for a fire victim. And why you don't need this? Because in the Palisades, they don't need it. In LA County Incorporated, they don't need this. Why do you need it here? Why do you need to share this small, rich town style of processing things for fire victims and with mansions? I think, but again, this comes from the top, from management. They need to want to make changes, and they always you can always choose to do something or not to do it. Not doing it leads to hurt more than doing it and failing. So how do we help them get there?
If there's a precedent of a city around doing something pro fire victim, all other cities should jump on it and be excited. And it's crazy that doesn't happen, or that even additional things are added to the list. A low-hanging fruit is getting plans approved or giving feedback to plans only once and not 3 times. And I've heard from multiple residents so far that they submitted plans, they got corrections, they implemented the corrections, and suddenly the person at the city found new stuff. And that is something that is almost artificially slowing down.
I'm just going to read a text that I got just half an hour back, right? This is, I'm gonna not say the name, but it says, thought for sure I would hear something back from environmental today, but alas, nothing. It has now been a full month since our submissions. Any other suggestions? What do I need to do? So this is a submission into planning, and this family's been waiting for 30 days. Interestingly, I brought this up at our meeting this week, and they took notes and things like that. And I personally thought that for sure they'd hear back this week. So this is just heartbreaking. This is ridiculous, and this is a gross flouting of the 10-day rule that has been published and put out there. And moreover, they're being told that if other departments have provided feedback, stand by and don't respond to those until you hear from everybody. And the last piece, now, as it turns out, and this is coming from another family that was told directly by the EH reviewer, again, I'm not going to mention names, is that apparently they're jammed because they're also reviewing Palisades submissions, which was a real surprise. So no way that can happen.
So is the EH, so environmental health staff in Malibu, is also working at the Palisades, so they are not working the staff hours that they should in Malibu?
I was all along under the impression...
It's one of the best departments at the city, by the way.
I was all along under the impression that it's dedicated staff for Malibu, but that's what I was told. So maybe it's anecdotal, maybe it's not true. But
we need to, it's important to also filter, right, what are the truth and make sure. So
well, in this case, there were specific names that were said.
Okay.
So, but if that's the case, regardless, waiting 30 days for the first response, that just doesn't seem right.
Yeah. Well, but that is the solution here is bring it up top, like go up the ladder, like bring it to the council members, tell Marianne that this is happening, and she will send an email to whoever is responsible, and that will happen. But we cannot depend on doing this for each of the 1,000 applicants we're going to have, right?
So I think the solutions come from the top down. Abe, and I want to ask you guys about the new LA executive orders that just came out. But Abe, you're building, rebuild Malibu as well as LA City. How is the process different, and why are things moving through LA?
Well, so I have the advantage of looking at AB right side by side, because I've built in LA before the fires and built in LA after the fires. LA is not an easy process, but it's fairly complicated. There's a lot of critiques that can happen, but it's a more predictable process. If you know how to navigate, you sort of know what's coming your way. But what gets you in LA is also the adjacent dependencies, right? I mean, you got to go to urban forestry. You got to Let's say you're trying to do a driveway and there is a root of a tree that's there, then you got to get a root pruning permit, and then you got to get the botany department and the street services and so on and so forth. It's endless. And as these dependencies increase, your time, sort of expands horizontally and exponentially. What is happening now is all of those adjacencies are being very, very quick. Like under normal circumstances, where we would expect maybe something from fire would take a month, is coming in about 3 or 4 days. Especially in the context of the like-for-like rebuilds and like-for-like restrictions. And I just saw Mayor Bass issue another order which extended these sort of exemptions, if you will, to non-like-for-likers as well. So I think at a core level, we are seeing the adjacencies move a heck of a lot faster, but we are also seeing the approvers not be as nitpicky. So if there is something which is not contributing to the integrity of the design necessarily, it's being cleared for permit approvals. Like we are seeing far fewer corrections. And like I said, my example is AV. It's the same group. It's the same set of architects, same set of structural engineers that were submitting pre-fire, and the same group doing post-fire. And we are seeing a lot less corrections come. And if there are changes, they're being approved a lot faster. So I think to the point that you made earlier, Danny, and this we've heard anecdotally as well, is I think LA is taking the tact of if it's close, let it go, especially if it's a like for like. And
Because
like for like listen for
they understand the stakes. We could go on and on about Karen Bass, but she's a commanding figure in this moment, and she's doing things like issuing executive orders. There's also a realization, not talked about enough, but Malibu has a 2-year buffer before they run out of money. And they have a 2-year buffer because the governor is sort of averaging out property tax revenue over a 2-year period. That stops. On the track we're on now, how many houses are going to be rebuilt in 2 years?
0.
I mean, maybe a handful, right? Malibu won't have enough money to sustain itself without these houses getting back. LA seems to realize the stakes of the situation, and they're accelerating things. I was just
somebody obviously kicked their reviewers, like gave them a kick in the ass, said, let this go through. This sea of applicants, let them go through. Nobody's done that at Malibu.
And there's nothing written that has come out in LA. And this is the conversations that I've had with inspectors and others is, there's nothing necessarily written that has come out, but that's been sort of the mantra within Figueroa and Van Nuys and wherever else they're issuing the permits. It's go. That's the kind of mindset, and you can see it, right? You drive around Palisades and you see how many houses are already framed up. I think there's probably at least like 15 of them that have got their frames up, and that's remarkable.
Full volume framing, right? You can see what their story poles may have ever shown if they had to do story poles, but they don't, because all those requirements have been removed for the purpose of rebuilding, as they should have been. So
if you guys were to be granted, each of you were given one wish to get this ship back on track, what would that be?
I'll go first because I have it right here in front of me because Karen Bass wrote it. She directs all city departments to conduct and conclude all permitting reviews required for reconstruction projects to be complete within 30 days following the submission of a complete application. And this is also interesting, it'll come into play later. All inspections during building have to be completed within 2 days of them being requested. That's action, that's direction.
I mean, I'd say I'd want strong executive leadership coming from the city manager, and then, top down marching towards getting permits approved. That could come also with electronic plan review that would bring in outside plan reviewers who can consult on an hourly basis in order to supplement the staff in Malibu. Because when they get 150 applications in a month, they're not going to be able to handle it.
I'd say if it's not obviously dangerous, rebuild it. Simple as that. If it's not illegal or dangerous, rebuild it.
And add some color to it. What's obviously dangerous to you, Arno?
Obvious dangerous is something that's structurally not sound and will fall in a 5.0 earthquake.
So don't rush into a bluff site property without the appropriate, legwork or whatever it is that has to be done. But if you're building on a flat lot or whatever it is, I mean, don't kind of stress it. That's kind of
if there's a flat lot with a foundation that has been there for 50 years and that looks good, rebuild on it. No, if it's not obviously dangerous, if it's clear to see that house was good and will be good, and what the architect and structural engineer delivers is gonna hold, build it.
I want to talk a little bit on that, if I may, because I sense a lack of big picture thinking. The housing infrastructure of Malibu is going to be vastly improved in this rebuild, whether the city loosens the reins or not. I mean, I was talking to a neighbor today on the beach. She said the house that burned down was 100 years old. It was a tinderbox. Who knows? How could it still be standing after the earthquakes we've had? It still did. So if she builds a house, she rebuilds her house, and let's say it's only 95% as good as the 2022 building codes, which is what we're building under. That thing is going to be a tank compared to what we had before. It doesn't matter. Malibu could spend another 4 months trying to get that last 5% of perfection. It doesn't make a meaningful difference compared to getting these houses back. And what a robust city we will have regardless, because licensed engineers are not building houses of cards. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, the technical capacity of contractors and engineering code these days is so much better than when the house that my family lost was built, right? My sense is that house was built by a guy who had one engineer draw up one plan. He replicated it 6 times, and there were 6 houses built. They were all the exact same floor plan. But when you went underneath them and you looked at the piles that supported those houses, they were all vastly different. And it wasn't because of geotechnical studies. It was because of the way that they put the piles into the ground, and then they figured, well, let's brace that one to this one and that one to that one. And they were all haphazard at best. They did last 75 years. But the technical know-how of those carpenters then versus what we have now, it's like worlds apart.
Well, and we have better
materials.
materials,
That's
right?
built now will be 50 times better than that.
And we have engineered wood with many times as much strength, and we are building a lot out of steel. Just the degrees of freedom in construction has opened up, and importantly, and I'm a builder, I know this. The liability for builders and developers is also sky high. You can't mess around. Like, this is not a bunch of yahoos that's going to build a house over a weekend, because you're on the hook for 20, 25 years.
I know sometimes I am a little devil's advocate in this group. So the problem is not doing better than what was before, is doing it up to code. And that's the standard that the staff needs to impose. So to me, it's like, imagine that your classic car burned, right? And it didn't have seat belts because it was built in the 40s or 50s or whatever. And I have a car from early 80s. And when I bought it, the first thing that I did, it was changing the seat belt. I've never had an accident, ever, in motorcycle or car, but the first thing that I changed was the seat belt. So the same thing. So now when we have this argument, I'm sorry because I know that it's totally contrarian of what we have been saying for months. The fact that the slab hasn't moved, the fact that the people at the city, they need to look at the current code, and they need to allow you to build something that meets the current code. So when you're designing a new car right now, you have to have a proper seatbelt. Now the question is, right, it's a shade of grace. Are they telling you guys to design seatbelts like for a Formula One car instead of for a normal street car? That's a conversation to be had, but let's be professional when we talk about these things. Like, the houses need to comply with the code, and this thing of we didn't move or it's better than before, nah. And then as much liability that the builders have, dude, there's a lot of shitty builders.
I mean, I'm not saying don't build
they
the
do.
code. I'm just saying don't nitpick to the point where everybody gets like burnt out just by plan review.
Exactly. So that's what we have.
And I'm not advocating gross negligence. I don't ask anyone to just turn two blind eyes and just wave everything through. But there's a gray zone, right? And you can't nitpick a plan like the.
Well, I think
the
I think the seatbelt of a regular car versus a Formula One car is a good example. I mean, I think all of us want seatbelts, but do we have to have seatbelts like we were going to fly to the moon or not? Is I think the question.
Right, that's it. But also for context, if there was no fire, Big Rock, for example, was never developed before, and now you want to build a house there, you most likely wouldn't be able to do it without spending $2 million securing the site. With the current standards in Malibu, is crazy. So the fact that we can rebuild...
Oh, you don't have to spend $2 million, Luis. Don't give everybody a heart attack. Why would you spend $2 million?
No, before, without... So now they're still trying to meet us in the middle, but it's way too over-engineered, right? But again, it's big perspective of things. The fact that we can rebuild is already good news. Because they could have said, sorry, you cannot rebuild here. Right?
No, they couldn't legally, but
No, you can't say
I don't buy that.
Imagine that right after the fire, there's a huge landslide, right? I don't know, whatever. Do you think that they would allow you to rebuild there still or not? It's a good question. I mean,
that's a hypothetical. I mean, that's I don't know how to answer that necessarily, but
let me ask you this, Luis. Okay, forget the idea that we're not building things to code. They're building things to code in LA.
mhm.
As of 2 days ago, they're going to be issuing permits within 30 days to code. So where's the hang up in Malibu? Why are we incapable of that?
I have totally
The
agree.
throughput process issue, right? There's just not enough people with the authority to say, yes, this meets the building code minimum requirements. They need more people, and they need to bring in outside help. The people who've been doing it in like Riverside County, Orange County, wherever, people who are familiar with California building code as it relates to homes, they can just be consultants for the time being during this crunch, which we're all going to see. And if they don't do that, we're all just going to get stifled and frustrated.
yeah, I mean,
That was
the
Yolanda
decision-
first thing. You guys know that, right? Like right after the fires, the thing that she was focusing on was securing consultant plan check reviewers and contracts because all the jurisdictions were fighting for this.
yeah, it needs to be decentralized. Right now, there are a couple people who are trying to make all the decisions, and we can't be rebuilding 1,000 homes like that at scale. I think at the core, that's the issue. Well, guys, we'll
I didn't
wrap
say
this-
a wish. I didn't.
Oh yeah. What's your
My-
wish?
my-
Luis?
what are we
I mean,
doing?
that comment that you made last definitely got you from the blacklist to the gray list. That was a good one.
I've always felt that, but sometimes you never know. Review issues, like, safety. You know, there's an oath, a professional oath when you design stuff. You have to protect the public, but there's a shade of gray. But again, this is gonna get me back in the blacklist, right? Because I have 3 mini wishes. One,
You just get one.
implement something similar to Epic LA, which automatically imposes the other 2, which is more clear guidelines, better payment systems, better submittal systems, more transparency. It's like, just with that, if they just did that, and instead of giving us corrections one by one, they give us a checklist with all the potential corrections. They circle the ones that they want, and then they cannot add more later. With that, we already saved years, accumulated years of time savings for all the victims.
Well, guys, a good first episode. Let's call it a wrap. To say something positive, I think we have gone some ways in expressing that we aren't a bunch of crazed, desperate residents who are asking for whatever to get back our homes. I think we are talking sense. And I think the council, my guess is starting to appreciate that we are not, just being demanding children, but there is some sensibility to what we are asking. I think the city is starting to pay some mind to that as well, and starting to think of us as partners. There's a very long way to go, but some small signs of encouragement. We are on their website now, the zones and the zone captains and things like that. So that's just look. I mean, at the end of the day, we are in a very tough situation with what we were talking about with our spectacular coast and the hillsides that present some topographical challenges. We've had cultural issues with the NIMBYism that has gone on, and we just talked about the staffing problems as well. So it's not that we have a set of scenarios that are working for us. So it's a tough situation to navigate. But I'd say, in my last 6 or 7 weeks of engaging with the city staff, I mean, their hearts are in the right place. They're definitely trying to, they're trying to help. They're also drinking from the fire hose in many different directions. I mean, and that's the thing that we were talking about earlier, right? I mean, there is the mobile home park issue that is going on. There is no toilets in the Surfrider Beach. I mean, look, the city is still active. We're still 20% or 15% of the city, and there is a full city that has to still keep functioning. And that is where I think the biggest issue is. People are getting stretched so thin. There are people wanting to build their McMansions, and residents are appealing them, and therefore city has to spend more time in debating. Council has to spend more time reading those files and things like that. So, so everything is still going on, and on top of that, we have not one or two, but nearly 1,000 homes that have to be rebuilt. So, so it's a massive undertaking. But I didn't share my wish. But if I were to have one wish, it would be having a dedicated staff and a dedicated leader that just focus on rebuild, can be exclusive to all of the other issues that are so consuming. Look, I mean, we saw those beautiful lights that went up during the 4th of July, the rainbow lights and stuff.
Show,
yeah, that was beautiful. They didn't ultimately get a permit for it, so they had to take it down quicker. And the permits came, they applied for the permits at the last minute. I don't know exactly what all happened there, but ultimately there wasn't enough time to issue permit. But that took away time. And those are normal things. I mean, all of us cheered that. It was uplifting for the city, yet at the other side of it, there are the same resources that are having to spend time thinking about permitting that fixture. And if that sets the precedent, then, how will other lights, I mean, is everybody now allowed to throw lights up in the sky? That sort of stuff. So there is a full, vibrant, active city which is trying to bring back tourism, trying to bring back its restaurant, trying to bring back its beaches at play here, which is a big task, all the utility work that's going on. And then on top of that, we are looking for these very difficult rebuilds. I think it's a physical and structural impossibility. It just cannot happen like this in the time frame we're looking for. So anyway, so that's my soapbox moment. That's my wish. All right, guys. Well, happy Friday, happy weekend, and we'll see you guys soon.